My name is Glenn Turley from ComfortBilt Pellet Stoves. Many of you have asked, how to start the stove up, so today I want to show you some basic steps on what to look for on the stove and some simple startup procedures. First, you want to make sure you got plenty of pellets in your hopper. Okay, we just topped this one off. Every stove has a lid switch, okay, which is a safety switch that stops the auger from turning, so it stops the feeding of the pellets. So when you turn on your stove and turn your power control panel on, you'll see an L indicated right beside the word on. That indicates that the auger is going to feed. There's a L displayed on your control panel. So now I'm going to turn on the stove, power it up. You'll notice that it says standby. That's waiting for the command of the owner to tell the stove what to do. You'll notice that the screen still says the stove is off. So to turn on the stove, you want to hit the top left button. You'll hear the stove start up, you'll hear the pellet start to drop, you'll hear your exhaust fan come on. When you start the stove, you always want to make sure that the stove level is on level number 3. To change your level, you hit your up or down arrows to make sure it's on level 3 when you start the stove. That is important so that your exhaust motor gets hot enough to turn on the room blower fan and to turn your igniter off. Also on your screen, you'll notice that there is a V and a L. The V is for your vacuum. Without the V, the fire will come on, but it will fade off. So it's imperative that the stove has its own vacuum. And your L is for your lid switch. The L, if you open your hopper lid, you'll notice the L disappears off the screen. And you close it, the L will reappear. Without the L, the auger stops turning. It's a safety switch. Next, I want to show you the stove settings. So you'll notice on the top of the screen, I've already put in the date and time. And right now the stove is in the manual control mode. I can change that to temperature, thermostat, by depressing this bottom left button. You can go to temperature, you can go to weekly settings or manual. I prefer to run the stoves in the manual settings on level 1 or 2 as long as the home is under 2,000 square feet. Level 1 is usually enough heat. The stove has 5 heat levels. Level 5 is enough heat for like 3,500 square feet. If I want more heat, I just bump the control panel up to like 75 or 76. If I want a really hot house, keep in mind the temperature probe is on the back of the stove, so it's always going to be higher than this number in your home, usually by 5 degrees. So I prefer to tell the customer to set this control panel on 62 to 65 degrees. The smaller the home, the hotter it's going to be naturally. Okay, but most customers run the stove in manual, and then to turn on the stove at this point, you hit the top left button, and you'll notice that the match is your igniter, your exhaust fan comes on, your pellet feeding indicator comes on, your vacuum switch comes on, your lid indicator is showing on your screen, and the word on or off. If the stove is on, that means the fire is going to start soon, and you always want to start the stove on bar number 3. In the center of the screen, you'll have a symbol that will appear after about 3 or 4 minutes, and that's your room blower fan. It looks like a hairdryer symbol. Your stove is on ignite 1. There's 4 ignite cycles. Each one is 1 minute. Usually by the end of ignite 3, you should have a fire going. If you do not have a fire going by the end of ignite 3, chances are your igniter is not all the way forward behind your burn pot, or there's not enough sufficient air flowing through your burn pot to get the ignition started. Get to all your controls, you just depress your left button, left arrow. There you can set your clock, you can go into your weekly programming, you can actually change your temperature units. See, the arrow will let you choose where to start. You hit that to highlight it. Notice I've got it in Fahrenheit, but if I want to change it to Celsius, I hit the button and then hit the left arrow and then the U-turn, and that'll set me in Celsius. Okay, but being that we're in the good old USA, I like to have Fahrenheit. So if you have placed your TV close to the stove, you can barely hear the blower noise. but you do have the ability to lower and increase your blower voltages. By simply depressing the left arrow, you can come down to number 4 blower voltage and hit your left arrow. That will allow you to change your voltages on your blower assembly. So as you can tell, the stove has been on for a few minutes. We're now in Ignite 2. It's already raised the temperature 1 degree in the first 5 minutes at the back of the stove. You notice the V is still on. It tells you the stove is creating its own vacuum, and the stove is in the manual mode. It's going to stay on level 3 until my hairdryer symbol comes into the center of the screen, and that tells me my room blower fan kicked on. But my room blower fan is not kicked on yet because the exhaust temperature has not hit 200 degrees yet. As soon as it does, the hairdryer symbol will come on the screen. You'll feel the heat from the front of the stove. Your igniter will turn off, and the match will fade off. As soon as the room blower fan kicks on, you'll lose your igniter indicator. All right. As you can tell, the room blower fan just came on. The stove is now on Ignite 3, and now I see the hairdryer symbol in the center of the screen on the bottom of the stove. The stove now says heating, which means everything is working properly. So now you can see the stove is saying heating. My room blower fan indicator came on the center of the screen, and my igniter symbol kicked off. So at this point, I can leave the stove on bar number 3, but if I do that, my house will get very hot quickly. So I want to decrease the heat down to level 2 or level 1, just to maintain the heat in the house. If I wanted to have the stove in the temperature mode, I would hit the bottom left button with the 3 counterclockwise arrows, and I would decrease the temperature down to 65, 66 for like a 2,000 square foot home. This seems to be the right setting. And what will happen here is the stove will idle on level 1, just to where the heat will be dropped in the house to where it'll maintain that. If I leave the stove high on level 75, 76, if the number on the right is the call to temperature, which is higher than the left side. So the stove will automatically sense that it needs to build up the temperature on the stove. Okay, so what will happen is the stove will automatically bump itself up to level 3 or 4. It takes like 15 seconds to do it, but it'll bump itself up to level 3 or 4 just to build the temperature up to the desired temperature. Once it hits the desired temperature, then it drops back down to level 1 automatically. As you can tell, the fan symbol is on, the igniter has kicked off, and your pellet feeding symbol is showing blinking off and on, is how it should work. Your hairdryer symbol, your V for your vacuum, your L for your lid switch, and the on. I'm in the thermostat mode. My call to temperature is 77, and it says that it is 75 on the back of the stove. So as you can tell, the fire is now off. I turned the stove off, but you can still hear your exhaust motor running. That is to evacuate all the smoke out of your existing piping. The exhaust motor will stay on approximately 20 minutes after you turn the stove off. So we had the stove on for 15 minutes. It raised the temperature 2 degrees in here, and this building is 5,000 square feet. Generally, this area where the stove is at, it'll bring it up about 1 degree every 15 minutes. Many of you asked what this knob is for. Basically what that does is it scrapes the carbon off your heat exchanger tubes. It's a scraper knob, and if you pull it out while the stove is cooled, pull it in and out 5 or 10 times, and that scrapes the carbon off your heat exchanger tubes. Many of you also have asked about the quality of pellets. On the East Coast we use hardwood pellets. On the West Coast it's all about Douglas fir softwood pellets. The criteria for your pellets should include the following. Your material, it'll either say hardwood or softwood. The ash content is very important because you don't want your burn pot to get clogged up, so it should always say less than 1%. Your fines is how much sand, soil, stones that is inside the bag. Is less than 0.5% is very important. This is a high BTU. Some manufacturers will tell you the BTU level, some do not. This brand is called Somerset that we use in North Carolina, but nationwide we use 4 or 5 different types of pellets. What I strive my best to do is take care of my customers. If you bought one of my stoves, I do appreciate your business, and hopefully that you have told your friends and family about us. Our goal is to take care of our customers as well as introduce our stoves to the market. We're in business to make sure that everybody can afford a pellet stove, and also to make sure that we're never going to be gouging the customer on our pricing. We keep our prices low so that they are affordable. We want to be known as the Affordable Pellet Stove Company. We keep all the parts for our stoves in Raleigh, North Carolina. If you ever needed any parts, we've got it. We offer 1 and 2 year warranties for our stoves on top of the manufacturer warranties, so you can call us anytime to get the extended warranties.